Zalae's also been hiking a lot, going outside, hanging out with Firebat a lot more often. Says it's been great for his mental health lately, just especially since during these troubling times, it feels like you can be isolated, and Zalae's done a really good job of trying to like improve that and maybe even document some of that if you've been following his channel and some of his social media feeds, trying to focus and be very reflective in the mornings. In the meantime, Fr0zen's been streaming a lot in Chinese. For people who don't really know, Fr0zen actually dual streams. He sometimes streams, of course, on his normal channels that he does on the West, but also does a lot of stuff in the East, as he's been kind of an important ambassador that connects the East and the West. As a competitor, as a world championship finalist, as a tournament organizer, and as a caster. He actually casts in Chinese fairly often.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty cool to see Fr0zen be like one of those links between two worlds, while also representing, of course, Team Liquid, one of the most prominent esports organization in this space. And so Fr0zen's been kind of a mainstay, one of the best performers in GM for quite some time. But seems like he's kind of been like just narrowly missing the Division A cutoff and then doing well in Division B for the past couple seasons.
Yeah, but he's still, a lot because of his performances in the 2019 seasons. He's still in the top 5 all-time for Grandmasters players' win rates, despite being in the Division B 2 seasons in a row now. So definitely one of the most consistent players. Zalae, nothing against him, but not so much. He's been closer to the bottom more times than not. But has always, escaped relegation. Did well in I believe he was at the top of Division B last season. I even think I remember talking to Firebat, and he was like, "Yeah, Zalae and I were both at the top of Division B last season. We both plan to be at the top of Division B this season, and then next season we both plan to be in Division A." That's ideal, but kind of funny. That's how Firebat was phrasing it. They've been dominating Division B together, and then they'll make their foray into Division A next time. But still a little bit scary for Zalae, because if he loses the series and goes down to 3-3, he joins a bunch of other players that could be 3-3 at the end of like day 1, day 2 for Division B. Being 3-3 means if you lose your last match, you're probably in the conversation for relegation, at least in the bracket, maybe even auto-relegated depending on how tiebreakers shake out, since we could have like a 5-way tie at 3-4, I think is how things ultimately come down to it at quick glance. But Druid mirror match. It's a lot less explosive than it once was. Still explosive nonetheless.
Yeah, it's explosive. It's just not nearly as quick. And you might feel like, oh, it's like a 1 mana difference. How bad could it possibly be? It's not that it's like bad, but it creates a scenario where if you do end up ramping, you end up hitting a lot later than you usually do, which makes it extra punishing to not draw ramp. Not drawing ramp in this matchup feels super bad now. Because of like, if you're not doing it, you still don't have like a turn 7 to be able to make that comeback. Your opponent's like, well, I'll just like play stuff. And you're like, well, I'm just gonna hero power and get you for 1. But don't forget, I get 1 armor.
Yeah, when you're playing a Druid mirror now and both players don't draw ramp, it's like you both look at each other and say, why are we playing this deck?
It's like, brutal. Do you just want to start game 3 1-1? You're like, yeah. Like let's just like let our druids through. Come on,
Yeah.
You feel a little bad about it, but when you hit the ramp and your opponent does not, it can be super one-sided because of those reasons. It feels like the comeback in this matchup feels a lot harder now because of that lack of GA. But now we have Zalae with the ability to respond back to this Twilight Runner. It takes his entire turn, which is a little bit unfortunate. And, when you start off on the back foot here, you're just really hoping Fr0zen doesn't have that ramp. But the good news is that Fr0zen does not have it at the moment. Woo! Innervate Speaker Gidra. It's an aggressive stance.
Yeah. He's playing Teacher's Pet next turn, but this gives him the upside that if he draws Overgrowth, which is the best draw in his deck, I think, he gets to play Overgrowth without the guilt that comes along with ramping of, oh no, I didn't do anything else that turn. The FOMO of ramping. Oh, did they both double Crystal Power remove? look at that sidebar. Oh
Wow.
my gosh. This is the Druid Mirror in a nutshell. Oh, the Lightning Boom, sick pickup. You can go for
Okay,
Guardian
yeah,
Animals
so
next turn.
might be worth to
Or-
actually evaluate if you want to overflow this turn.
Yeah. Because if you overflow this turn and you hit Overgrowth, you can still play it next turn and then naturally ramp into Guardian Animals.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually I think I like that a lot better. Because the permanent ramp I think is more important.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah, he also plays double at Nubistot Defender, so it's very likely that he either picks up Overgrowth or something to be able to play. Problem is, if he doesn't pick up, is that an Overgrowth? No.
Nope. Nope.
It was a blue card that was playable, so. You know.
Ironbark feels so weak to play given that you have it for free on the following turn, but are you afraid of losing the board state?
You still can't kill the
So
Lake Thresher,
unusual. This is a very unusual situation for it to be in, and perfectly encapsulate what it's like to play a Druid Mirror at the moment. Yeah, I think this makes sense. The Ironbark just stops the ability for Fr0zen to take it out really easily through a hero power or his own Ironbark. Even willing to preemptively trade into it. Wow. Whoa, big pickup here for Fr0zen.
Insta rips.
Right, because he knows he needs to play that, especially with the ability to drop your Sarah next turn before his opponent plays Guardian Animals. And now Fr0zen kind of weighing if it's worth preemptively trading on his end.
Oh. I like hero power play a 5-drop here and trade over the Lake Thresher. More so than I like anything else.
What to do?
Opponent will most likely have to play a minion strike to test that board, and then he can play Guardian Animals and guaranteed at least one Twilight Runner off the Guardian Animals. Has 2 Twilight Runners and 1 Teacher's Pet left in the deck.
Right.
I wonder.
Well, I mean, this is pretty straightforward from Zalae. Like, he doesn't have the freedom to just play too slow for tempo and really wants to capitalize onto it. Fr0zen now has 2 options. He can go for the Mount Seller Broomstick, or he can go for the Acera Unleash. Actually, he can go for the Garden Animals as well if you'd like. But he just drew a Teacher's Pet.
Oh no!
So that feels a lot
He
worse.
has a single Twilight Runner left in his deck. He only
Yeah.
plays the 5 beasts, so with only 1 beast left in the deck, that shuts off these Guardian Animals. And I mean, this is it coming 1 turn later. You can see just how sometimes big of a deal that can be. Even though it wouldn't have mattered in this case, like that. If, say he was ramped into 8 mana, picked up Overgrowth a turn sooner, and that Teacher's Pet was drawn, it would mean that his Guardian Animals coming out a turn later would have heavily punished him.
Right. And now all the ramp comes out. Zalae really thinking about what he can do here in this spot as well. Maybe Maybe just bite the bullet and you play the overflow. It is a little bit of a harder card to use anyways. Could also just do something kind of like okay with the ramp play that you were talking about. So I don't know. This all feels so bad.
Yeah, I like Wild Growth 5-drop. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
He still has 3 beasts in his deck, so Guardian Animals is still active next turn, even if he draws a beast off the top. Having double Leg Thresher as well means that if a lot of portals come out, like say Fr0zen went for an overflow turn this turn, double Leg Thresher on board means that he actually can answer quite a significant board presence. So,
Right. Well, that's assuming Fr0zen doesn't just answer right back. If Fr0zen goes for Twilight Runner, excuse me, with the Guardian Animals, and then draws a bunch of portals, he could use the Broomstick. He can also just use the animated Broomstick with the Iron Bark right here. And try to win that way, because he does have the guarantee kill on this Anubis.
Yep.
Finds Jungle Panther. Okay, so this clears everything then.
Time waits for no one.
So I think I like it. Trade, oh, okay, yeah. Trade the Asteroids, take a little bit more damage, and then reduce mana damage none. And also, keep a little 1/1 on board.
Yeah, makes this board really awkward for Zalae to deal with, especially without Broomstick.
Right.
Still 2 Twilight Runners and a Teacher's Pet in the deck for Zalae. But the problem, as we mentioned, is outside of these Guardian Animals, Zalae, I guess a double Bog Beam too. So you draw here first with Twilight Runner, hope to pick up Bog Beams. A Bog Beam.
Oh, okay. Definitely an annoying minion for Fr0zen to have to deal with, that Emperor Cobra. I mean, Fr0zen does have the portals in there. Oh, finds Speaker Ghidra. I mean, that's an intimidating minion to have to deal with the lack of broomsticks from Zalae's side. He can even, like... Okay, I was going to say he could even protect his Speaker Ghidra with a Teacher's Pet, set up for Guardian Animal the following turn, and really go in.
He didn't draw any portals.
Wow. Set up for Survival of the Fittest. That's gotta feel tempting. Another thing he could alternatively do is play Speaker Ghidra and Forest Aid next turn, and just like go for a really powerful board setup.
I wonder.
Last option, of course, is Bite. Bite has some application. I feel like it's a lot weaker when you don't already have the board lead. Bite's pretty decent if you need to like stay ahead, because you can use it to trade and then push damage. And they're going for the Forest Aid with the Speaker Ghidra opportunity. Interesting. And I think it's because if in the worst case scenario where Fr0zen loses his board this turn, he still has something proactive to play, versus Survival of the Fittest might just sit dead if he loses the board entirely.
Yeah. This is a weird game. Like, it's usually when you get to like these 10 mana marks, Druid games end very quickly.
Oh,
very quickly.
He drew double portal.
We fired up.
It's annoying. It's okay. He loses 1/2/2 Treant. It's not a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have a dragon than a 2/2 Treant.
Right. Well, it's a 3/2 over a 2/2, I suppose.
Yeah.
Nature speaks.
Could just be the quality of his dragons as well. That's like not great.
Yeah.
So Fr0zen does have the option of not playing the Forte and just overflowing instead. And the Crimson Hothead getting the taunt. Wow, right wing. Really getting that cameo in.
Time waits for no one.
A lot of Brightwing.
Oh. Going for the hero power and pushing that 4 damage. Wants to set up a 2-turn lethal. Makes sense, given that he's already knows he's going to trade the Speaker Gidra. It's not like he needs to protect it very much. And now Zalae staring at potential lethal next turn.
Yeah.
Mount Seller.
Not a significant way to come back.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there is a way.
He looks in trouble.
He looks very dead to me. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some kind of like series of outs. Like if you like exotic Mount Seller innervates Overgrowth and it gets like Rusher.
Yeah, you would need like double Diving Griffin Zixor,
I supply only the finest
and then
creatures.
draw Zixor Prime like next turn and dodge all the portals.
Time waits for no
And
one.
even then, he probably still dies. Like that's how bad of a situation it is. Because he can't rush any of this stuff in.
Yeah, that's gonna do it. Just a little bit too short.
Oh, Bog Beam!
Oh wait, the Bog Beam.
Got there!
Woo! So he's not dead yet, but a draw off the top from Fr0zen could end it. Also, a spell from Nature Studies could end it. But we're still living.
Imagine if he had picked Bite, Dan. Bite was lethal.
Nope.
Mark of Nature also
dead.
lethal.
Yeah, Mark of Nature is very much lethal, I think.
Yeah, there's 14
All right,
on board,
so-
15 with the hero power, so Mark of Nature just by itself is lethal damage.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Game number 1 goes to Fr0zen, the Druid and Mirror, and the slightly more tempo-oriented variation with the animated broomsticks ends up going the way we kind of thought it would, as Fr0zen does take that Game 1 victory. And we do look at Druid as potentially being a deck that people might be trying to see if they can corner, given that they have lost a step, but still seems like it's got a lot of game. And Zalae almost brought that back to stabilize, but still needed just a little bit more. You saw what happens when one player hits ramp and one player does not. So with that, that does lead us to our final break of today. We're going to take a few minutes and get set, and when we come back, we're going to have Zalae and Fr0zen play in Division B match that could determine whether or not they're going to playoffs or relegation.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.
벌써 어려운데? 세 가지 단어로요?
세 가지라고 하니까 좀 애매한 것 같네.
Hearthstone player, caster, fan.
穏やか、楽、丸いって感じですかね。
用3个词形容我的话是很努力，然后认真工作，然后很爱玩遊戲。
自分を3つの言葉で表すなら、うまい、オタク、雑。
스트리머, 하스톤 게이머, 뭐 30대 게이머 이렇게 할게요.
저를 세 단어로 표현하면은 슈퍼, very cute, maybe.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hearthstone Grandmasters. We are currently in the middle of a series between Zalae and Fr0zen, and currently Fr0zen's up 1-0 after winning the Druid Mirror. Now, we go into the rest of the series and we kind of look at some of these decks. Druid does seem to be a deck that is, we have a lot of question marks over it, but it does really come down to how these other decks will perform as well, right? Like we look at Rogue and Demon Hunter being differences in the lineup. Will that be the X factor? Or is it going to be Mage, right? Because Mage is a deck that can also just get stomped by classes like Druid and Demon Hunter and potentially even Rogue. So not really sure what is the weak point of the lineup. Everything seems to be well-rounded, but, Mage does end up sometimes struggling a little bit on camera here.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's just been brought so much that its win rate has just kind of normalized. It's right at like a 50% win rate, which honestly, given that it's almost at a 700 game sample size over the course of Grandmasters this season, 50% is pretty good for a deck that's being brought that much and is also expected to have been brought that much, so people know that they're probably going to be going up against Tempo Mages. But it is one of the lowest win rate decks, especially when you do consider in that sample size. Like some of the ones that are lower are... there actually isn't any that have... Okay, Aggro Rogues, Weapon Rogue, 47%. That's it. Wait, Soul Demon Hunter is at 48. So, there you go. I'm surprised to see Soul Demon Hunter that low, actually.
I mean, a lot of people are saying that Soul Demon Hunter is a pretty hard deck to play correctly. Like, you could certainly play the obvious strategy a lot of times, but you need to have pretty in-depth knowledge of the nuance within certain matchups.
Yeah.
Where you have, like, deviating lines that don't necessarily just try to aggro your opponent as fast as possible. Because you certainly could play Demon Hunter that way, and you might have a competitive win rate. You most likely will hit Legend if you just do that. But, do you excel within the high elo community, which is definitely something that people consider for sure. So it doesn't really surprise me that it has a average win rate, but in the hands of a really good player, ends up performing even better. That being said, we do see some innovation even within the small tweaks of the deck lists of these Demon Hunter deck lists, which I'm sure we'll talk about more when we get to see it on camera. But one of them is, what are some of those early to mid game cards that you play, which are pretty fascinating to think about. Speaking of which, by the way, of the win rates, Fr0zen has not had a very high success rate with Tempo Mage. He is 15-20 so far in this season. It's not really promising, and yet it does seem like Fr0zen puts a lot of faith into the Tempo Mage. Maybe he just likes it. Maybe he just thinks it's a fun deck to play.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Fr0zen kind of just falls into this trap of like just playing his cards in Tempo Mage a lot of times. But I also do feel like I want to say the style doesn't mesh well with the style of Mage that Fr0zen has been successful on in the past. Like, if you look at the style of Mage that Fr0zen's been successful on in the past, it's like those really grindy control mages. Like, think back to his World Championship performance where he was playing kind of like this control mage. Even before that, he played a lot of tournaments with control mage. Tempo Mage is a little bit different. But honestly, he's not too far below the win rate that I just mentioned of Tempo Mage in general in Grandmasters, which is, below 50%. So, like, 2 more wins with the deck puts him within that range. So, even though he's slightly underperforming given the average, he's not overperforming by a lot, right, given the overall performance of Tempo Mage as a deck. So, I don't think it's anything really to worry about.
All right, well, we'll see if that ends up becoming, the Achilles heel that we have seen it be in the past. As take a look at the division standings again and see where Zalae and Fr0zen sit. A win here would tie the ETC at number 1 in Division B. A loss here would put them very much in the middle of the pack. Just keep them kind of where they are, which is not where they want to be. They want to separate themselves from the rest of the players. Empanizado and Just Saying right now, the only players at 2 and 4, which is looking increasingly like those are the players that we might see either auto-relegated or put into the relegation bracket. All right, looks like we're in. Mage Mirror. Druid Mirror, Mage Mirror.
I was going to see mirrors all the way down. No, can't see a mirror in the last.
It's not even possible after this one. But
yeah,
yes.
Fr0zen on the coin. And some interesting choices here. Shinvala on the coin, I think, is fantastic. But one of the problems that, I don't even know if it's a problem, it might be a feature of the small spell mage, the temple mage, is that it's so hard to choose what to mulligan because every card is so similar in win rate when kept in the mulligan. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards within 4 percentage points of each other in mulligan win rate, which is unheard of in any like tier 1, tier 2 deck. Usually there's a couple cards that have a much higher win rate than the rest. Just goes to show you that you can keep just about anything in Temple Mage and be pretty much the same as you would be in any other case, because there's so many combos of things that work together, right? Like Sorcerer Apprentice, Mana Cyclone, Lab Partner with Cram Session, Shinvala Sorcerer Apprentice, just having a Tempo hand with Astromancer and Wandmaker, having a minion start with Violet Spellwing, Wandmaker, and Jandis Barav, like those kinds of things. Like it's difficult for this deck to not have a good curve, I guess, is the conclusion we can draw from these stats.
Right. It's fairly low curve and very easy to piece together stuff, but what's the optimal set of combinations of cards and how do you jockey for position early here? And Zalae has to kind of weigh that if he's just gonna drop this Shinvala. Hope for the best, but he is down in the overall card count here because of that coin, and it's going to be very valuable for Fr0zen to capitalize on that. He is behind, though, and doesn't have ways to generate spells. He drew his Jandis Barav. Doesn't look very promising from here.
Just no spells whatsoever except the coin. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it seems like Fr0zen just going to take it a little bit slow, recognizing that doesn't have to overreact to this. His opponent still has to prove that he can capitalize on Shinvala. And Zalae kind of can, but not at a very reasonable clip. He has to kill his own Shinvala to do that. So, might be just a opportunity to use the Cram Session here.
Yeah. And then the question is, do you use the Mana Reservoir in Cram Session, assuming you won't pick up a 1-mana spell? Or if you do, you'd rather save it anyway. Or do you Lab Partner Cram Session to try and be able to play that 1 mana if you get it? And I just like the Mana Reservoir because if you do pick up 1 mana spell, I'd rather save it to the next turn to be able to have fodder for Shinvala. Ooh!
Okay, that's a big pickup.
But he has to make a decision. Are you going Shinvala with Sorcerer's Apprentice, or are you going Mana Cyclone with Sorcerer's Apprentice? Shinvala with Sorcerer's Apprentice is very risky because you need to pick up a 1-mana spell in order for it to be worth it. Mana Cyclone could also be risky because you need to pick up a couple of cheap spells to make Mana Cyclone worth it at all. All right, he's going for the Shinvala. So he has 2 spells cast. So if he does, in 6 cards, if he doesn't pick up a 1-mana spell or less, very unlikely, then he would just stop there. Hits Ray of Frost. Only 1 though. So the payoff here is actually pretty big because he gets to make a 5/5 and stick the Shinvala, kill the Shinvala on the side of Zalae. So problem is now his Mana Cyclone stranded, but he has 2 powerful 5-drops sitting in his hand. So that is a very tough decision to make. Strand Shinvala or Strand Mana Cyclone. And this one plays more for tempo. But the other side means that, okay, yes, I'm straining my Mana Cyclone potentially with Sorcerer Apprentice, but you're getting a bunch of random spells in your hand, theoretically, if you pick up some cheap enough spells. So you can use those to combo with Shinvala. But I think I agree with Fr0zen in this one.
I mean, it ends up having a huge payoff, and now that 5/5 on the board, Zalae has to answer some pretty tough questions here, which is, which of these priority threats do you have to address? And he only really can answer one of them, and he has to kill the Shinvala. But it's like, the dynamic is pretty fascinating, given that Fr0zen was not actually intending on summoning another one.
What makes something be?
Not looking too good for Zalae.
I guess Cloud Prince is just weaker. This is a situation where I think Fr0zen probably sets up some mind games here. Like, I don't know if it necessarily matters too much, but he could, because he's going to be trading down a lot of this anyways. Cloud Prince makes more sense because you want your taunt to be more problematic, and Zalae would have to tag into it anyways. And now Zalae has to play this giant. You don't play the giant, you just fall too far behind tempo, and this is just looking like a dead hand.
Yep. I mean, if he's really confident he knows which one is the illusion, maybe you can not play giant. But you have to be like 99% certain. And, you know, the bright side is he does have Solarian Prime in his deck, which means each turn he has draws to potentially bail him out of this situation. Wand Thief could also get him something interesting that could bail him out. But
yeah, I'm
as
thinking
of right
about.
now, he's incredibly far behind.
I really like just giant here. I think that like Zalae playing the giant has kind of put into motion a tempo battle that indicates that you want to start closing out the game. And so it makes the most sense to me. And then you can even pick up really easy trades here. I kind of wonder if Fr0zen just even wants to pick up the kill on the mana reservoir first versus the lab partner. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Nice.
All right. That is a kill on the Mana Giant next turn.
Yeah, you can Brain Freeze and Ray of Frost now, but I think he wants to get the spell. Okay,
well,
so
now
he can Brain Freeze the 8/8.
Actually, no, yeah, you do it. Well, both players playing with pretty limited resources. That Cobalt spell can pick up. It ended up being huge because otherwise Zalae had nothing really going for him in his hand.
Finds a lab partner, which makes the cram session better. Yeah, it's gotta be a lab partner because the cards that you generate off the Mana Cyclone wouldn't even be significant at that point. Finds Magic Trick. Magic Trick could be played next turn so that he can charge his Mana Cyclone even further. does bring into question what he should be doing with his last remaining parts of the turn here. It looks like it could be just traded to the mana reservoir, I think.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah. There's a lot to think about, actually. If you want to trade into Mana Reservoir, if you want to trade into Cobalt Spellkin. If you want to use Metrics now or save it for an extra spell for Mana Cycle next turn. Right, so leave the spell damage on board. Oh, jeez. Zalae still just... not a lot going for him. Like, this hand just well, you know, the Cobalt Spell can kind of bail him out a little bit. He still doesn't have, he's not looking forward towards any combos. And with Ray of Frost used, that means he's also stranding Mana Cyclone in his deck. So it looks like Zalae's plan here is stick Malygos onto the board, and hopefully that's enough to win him the game. But Fr0zen will most likely play a Mana Giant here, and enough minions to be able to kill Malygos on board if he just plays it for 9, and the entire plan is going to go down. Whereas if he picks up like Mana Cyclone off the top, having held on to the Ray of Frost would mean that he would have some sort of reload. Now as it stands, he almost has no payoff card off the top. The only payoff card off the top that he has is Solarium Prime. Maybe Evocation.
Well, Fr0zen finds a spell that he could play, or rather a card he could play and make the Mana Giant free here. So, like you said, there's really no payoff for this Malygos spell damage, and Fr0zen's loading up the power on the board. Zalae finds Evocation off the top.
Alright, well, that's one of the only payoff cards that he has had available. Still needs a little bit of help, though. Alright, Deep Freeze, Brain Freeze, Counterspell, and Canner's Flow. Another Counterspell.
3 counter spells.
So, Arcane Explosion, Cram Session, Brain Freeze. Yeah, I don't know. I think you start with Arcane Explosion. That seems really good. Allows you to clean up much of the board. Cram Session, because he needs more cards in his deck. Brain Freeze. Plus maybe even the Arcane Missiles you get from the Violet Spellwing. Oh, a Sorcerer's Apprentice. Okay. Now, we're cooking a little bit more now, but how much can he honestly fit in? I don't think the Sorcerer's Apprentice changed that much.
Got tempo on the board. I think that's what's really important. You can trade in your Spellwing to have Arcane Missiles, but I kind of want to save the Arcane Missiles for the Malygos.
No, I think you need to deal with this now. I guess you could just ping, but maybe Counterspell has a lot of value, I think. Alright, so he turned the tide, but like again, it was just a board clear. He didn't get much else out of it. It's going to block this, though. But it buys him time, right? Because the longer this game goes on, the weirder it's going to get, because both players are going to use resources back and forth. No player has pulled far enough ahead. So evocations are used. Both players do have Solarium Prime. Fr0zen is out of Mana Giants, whereas Zalae still has Mana Giant, Conjures... No Conjure. He doesn't play Conjurer's Calling. He's playing the Cobalt Spell. Full Cobalt version.
Look at this. Potion of Illusion finds its way into the hand, TJ.
Alright.
You don't pick the ones.
Whoa. Oh my gosh, Raz, if it sticks.
Is insane.
If it sticks. Imagine if it sticks.
Well, no, it's just even insane right now because it
I know
clears
it's insane right
weakness
now.
of the Potion of Illusion.
Just imagine if it sticks. Yeah, Potion of Illusion is dead.
It's not even necessarily. It's like he doesn't even do anything on this board anymore.
Yeah. All right, well, that looks like game. Oh my gosh, Zalae. It's not over yet. Fr0zen could still find like devolving missiles.
You don't pick the wand.
Still find Solarium Prime.
Yeah. He definitely is struggling to find any footing here, and Zalae is going to wipe. Wow.
He can even
Wow.
he could squeeze in the elemental allies too, which actually because now he's so far ahead. Yeah, you play it.
You're afraid of Puzzle Box? Is that what you're afraid of?
Afraid of Solarium Prime? Like, you're only really afraid of that is if you think you're in such a good position that you can't lose except for Puzzle Box. But I just don't think that's the case. Because Devolving Missiles right now could, completely ruin his game plan. Still Solarium Prime in the deck. As Frost Whisper, not enough. He can buy himself a little bit of time, but not much, because freezing here still means he's taking a ton of damage. A ton of end-of-turn damage with Malygos on board. Can still find Devolving Missiles from Magic Trick. Actually can just take out the Raz, which I think is the most threatening thing right now with Malygos on the board.
Yeah, Combustion, Ray of Frost stalls out a lot of this damage here. And that's all it is, right? It's just stall.
Yeah.
Just keep stalling.
Runs out on me.
Yep.
Okay, Font of Power. Kieran Tor Tricaster. He's got to play these Rays. I guess he only plays one. Not afraid of just the Malygos 4.
Yeah.
Cobalt Spellkin. The Arcane Missiles. Let's not get it. Wait.
Can still get it. What is that? Arcane Missiles is lethal, yeah. Right? 6 on board with +6 spell damage.
Oh yeah.
Evocation. You wait till next turn, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You'll have 2 mana left. Whoa!
Nah. Save it till next turn.
Yep.
So he's got Raz plus Ray of Frost, and then next turn you can play the Kieran Tor Tradecasters. Okay. I think I see it. I think I see a series of outs. Zalae has to open up Evocation with 8 puzzle boxes and a Pyroblast.
Yep. It's got to be real bad. It's got to be an atrocious Evocation.
Or like a bunch of side. He already has both side quests, so like maybe he's like side quests galore. It's entirely possible.
Time runs out on me.
Wasn't thinking about the ping here or the arcane explosion. Doesn't want to take that damage. Just want to get outs to Zalae. All right. Evocation finds Frostbolt.
Frostbolt. That's it. I mean, it was so light. Because even if he just finds a way to answer the Raz, like even if it's all like minion targeted removal, it's probably enough there. So, wow. A very weird Mage Mirror with a lot of like branching decision pads from both players. It's kind of rare that you see these kind of all-in moments so early on from both mages, where they're fighting with resources off the top of their deck. And in that case, Zalae's list will come out on top because he has Arcane Breath with Dragons. He has Cobalt Spellkins, right? He has individual cards that, when drawn off the top, provide a immediate value. Whereas Fr0zen's was limited, he needed combinations of things, and that ultimately was his downfall. It fell towards the latter stages of that game. But big win for Zalae, ties up the series, and now he's got Soul Demon Hunter and a couple of good matchups to go with this Soul Demon Hunter, with both Rogue and Temple Mage being left alive, which Temple Mage, great matchup for the Soul Demon Hunter. Rogue, decent matchup for the Soul Demon Hunter. One thing that both decks have in common is that they take a little bit of time to get set up, and they both don't really have good ways to defend themselves, or at least ways in their deck to defend themselves. So those are qualities that Soul Demon Hunter loves in an opponent's deck.
All right, well, Soul Demon Hunter coming up next, and the Hunter Ace, the Ace Hunter Green rather. I like just calling it Hunter Ace because it just makes me think of times when Hunter Ace was still a Grandmaster. TJ, we were all so young and naive back then. Ripperino 2 months ago. Rest in peace. But yes, it does make it interesting for even dynamics like the mirror. I'm not really sure how to wrap my head around it. I think almost everyone unanimously agrees that Ace Hunter Green is a very good card, but it's kind of weaved in and out of a lot of deck lists. It feels like it's a really good card without like a proper home at the moment. And Zalae says, you know what, I just want to put it in a lot of my decks. He puts it in his Hunter deck, he puts it in his Demon Hunter decks.
I like it. Maybe not in Hunter, but
You
in Demon
asked
Hunter.
for it.
All right, well, we saw that Temple Mage was not a deck that Fr0zen has done well with, and he did end up losing again. Will that continue here, going to game number 3?
This one is a very tough matchup. The keep on the Mana Giant against Demon Hunter on the play.
Shows how badly he thinks about this matchup, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, that's wishful thinking. Again, Mage Mulligans are quite flexible because every card is so close in win rate. But if you think poorly about the matchup, there's 2 ways to go about it. You could hope for the best and pick the card that you'll need eventually to win the game, or hard mull for the highest win rate cards in the matchup. I like to hard mull for the highest win rate cards in the matchup, which going first is just a curve. Wild Spellwing, Wandmaker, Astromancer Solarian, Sorcerer's Apprentice, that kind of thing. Because Mana Giant, especially being on the play, not having the coin to be able to make more powerful plays early on in the game, and not a consistent way to get these Mana Giants cheap enough, you're given time for the Demon Hunter to find ways to deal with the Mana Giants.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, maybe this ends up paying off, so I don't know. Mana Giants in general, I think, have been very crucial for mages to turn around these bad matchups, and I can definitely see it working out for Fr0zen, but he has a lot to make up for it, right? Like his double Mana Giant here is so heavy, and Zalae's got a curve. And the way this match traditionally goes is that Mage has 2 modes. Either they have a pretty reasonable curve, they mass up a lot of resources while developing onto the board, or they just kind of flap around and just try to like piece things together. A lot of fronting, like, oh, look at like all these different potential spells that generate other spells might do. You never know, and they don't actually do anything.
You don't pick the ones.
Well, Fr0zen won't be able to play a Mana Giant next turn.
Right. But you don't necessarily. It's kind of like what you're talking about. One Mana Giant might not be enough. It's really the second one that might put it over the top here.
Yeah. Like, Zalae has an answer to a turn 5 Mountain Giant. Easily.
Right. Easy.
Like, enough so to where he can kill it without even attacking it and still push a ton of damage.
Right.
But the second Mana Giant, what do you do with that?
Well, it's important for him to maybe consider
Job's done.
it, the second Mana Giant to be a Conjurer's Calling setup, but
Yeah.
I mean, Zalae probably is ready for this second Blade Dance. All right. All right. 8 damage clear with the Blade Dance, 9 to the dome. And Illidan prefers to meet Jaina in hand-to-hand combat. And she does not like that. 14 health remaining. Fr0zen has the Sorcerer's Apprentice, a potentially huge pickup here. Kind of depends on the evocation setup.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Quite likely to pick up some big stuff. If he picks up a lot of cheap spells, he can go Mana Giant, Conjurer's Calling, same turn. Whoa! Oh, the Learned Draconic, he already has it available. Or he already has it equipped, active, whatever. I don't know which word works best there.
Oh, it says explode.
He has already played Astromancer, Solarian. Kind of back to what you were saying, Fr0zen was really hoping for an opportunity to play this Mana Giant for free and play Conjurer's Calling. It does seem like he's going to be slightly off of that right now.
Yeah.
So the good news, he has Ice Barrier this turn. And I will call that a win, because Demon Hunter and Ice Barrier do not mix very well. This does. Evocation, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mana Giant, shake it, stir it, blend it. And there you go, Zalae. What do you do?
Yeah. So this actually, what you'll see a lot of Demon Hunter players do is when they equip Marl Slicer on 4, they won't attack, because you're getting in the face damage regardless, and unless you have a ton of weapon swings in hand and need to end the game and within like 6 turns to get all those weapon swings in, there's no real reason to swing. Zalae swung, and you're kind of seeing the residual effects of it, where if he had not swung on the turn he equipped Marl Slicer, which he just hit face, he didn't like trade into a minion with it. He would have a pretty easy clear for this board if he had not swung on that turn. He'd still have his Marl Slicer available. Now, granted, that might have changed Fr0zen's game plan. He might not have played the Mana Giant on this turn if he knew Marl Slicer was there. He might have waited a turn and played it with the Conjurer's Calling, but that would have bought Zalae a turn to be able to, equip, done this play and equip another weapon in order to be able to answer it. So you're seeing kind of the residual effects of, is it worth pushing for face damage in that instance? When you're going to get that face damage in anyway, most likely. Well, I mean, or this could happen where your opponent just gets 2 5/5s.
Yes, that is hot garbage.
Yeah. Zalae still doesn't have a way to answer them, though. The Blade Dance in hand still needs a little bit more juice.
Job's done.
All right, can attack, Blade Dance, Gladebound, and clear the board.
Can also use Ace Hunter Kreen in this position,
I grow
which is a
impatient.
little bit unusual since you don't often use Ace Hunter with Blade Dance, but that is a combination available to him if he just wants to get a little bit of board presence. Leave up a
problem is he
single
doesn't
H-drop.
clear, right? If he goes Ace Hunter, you're leaving something on the board, and there's the second half of Conjurer's Calling.
Right, but does
Time grows
yeah, okay. No, you're right. I was thinking that he had the opportunity to trade, but I forgot that the Gladebound Adept is really important here for the Battle Cry, so you would be missing an ability to attack there.
Yeah. But really not out of the woods yet. I mean, he's at 15 with a 6-4 on board, but he has very little cards in hand. No skull to reload, no big weapon buffs. Fr0zen's got a full hand, most of it like just high value minions.
Ooh, a rusher to take down the Gladebound Adept. That's huge.
Yeah.
Fr0zen has the option of kind of developing something here behind the taunt, maybe Chenvala, while he has an opportunity to. It seems unlikely we're at the stage of the game where Chenvala can collect significant value, but it still can. Summon at least 1/5/5.
Alright, both Blade Dances used. Fr0zen pretty healthy. Has a board lead.
Alright, well, I mean, I like what you said. His hands are kind of tied in this position. There's not really too much he can do. And I think he knows that there's a very high likelihood that this is Iceberry at this point, given that he's pretty much tested for everything else attacking the face. Yeah. Whoa, boy!
He just
Insta-slam.
insta-plays it. They're Draconic. Mana power. Oh.
Vacation.
Was that a brain
Combustion. And a secret. Very reasonable. He can clear the board here with his evocation. He can even play this Wand Thief this turn. Yeah, that's bad news here for Zalae. He was really hoping that he could press in, but it looks like Mage just has too much going on. Counterspell to maybe potentially stop a future top deck Skull Gul'dan. And that might be all she wrote for game number 3 here. Zalae needs something big. Finds the smallest minion in his deck.
You can copy it and buff it.
Okay. The small victories.
That is a very, very, very small victory. In fact, I wouldn't even call that a victory. I would call that a glorious defeat.
I would say that that's a victory simply because that might be the highest value I've ever seen Philosophy get in Demon Hunter.
Potentially.
True mastery.
Get on board. Raz plus more spell damage.
Lethal.
4. No, but it clears off both minions and puts him down to 4 health, I think. Because 8 on board plus it's going to deal 4. Yeah, I think counterspell here is important because the only thing that gets him out of this is Skull. Like, who cares if you leave a 2/4 up on the board? Like, just shut off the Skull that he can potentially draw off the top and solidify the win. Well, it's Marrow Slicer.
That's gonna do it. Zalae with a nod. Knows that he was out muscled for this one. Demon Hunter is defeated. And that's going to do it for game 3. Zalae will be put on his match point here. Fr0zen just has to win with his rogue deck remaining in order to close out this series and advance the playoffs. Or potential playoffs, rather. We still don't know 100% how tiebreakers are going to shape up, so we can't really just say things committal. We will know, though, by tomorrow where some players stand, and on Sunday, we absolutely know where players stand going into the rest of the playoffs / relegations.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to crunch time. But that matchup, you know, as small of a thing as it is, and may not even have affected the outcome, but I said it during the match: the swing with the Marrow Slicer when he equipped it. Yeah, I feel like that was like kind of a snowball effect of Zalae being perpetually behind. That's what gave Fr0zen that Conjurer's Calling target initially. It was the second Mana Giant. It's what why Zalae had to use so many resources, blade dances earlier on, took a lot of damage in the process. Like I said, maybe it doesn't affect the outcome. You know, maybe he doesn't swing with that, trades into Mana Giant with the Marl Slicer the turn that comes down, and still falls behind and never draws Skull, right? But you know, when you lose those games with a favorable deck, you have to kind of look at those moments and think, could I have won? And I think the answer is yes for that game specifically. But got to put it behind him. Fr0zen now, like you said, Rogue is the only one left against Druid and Soul Demon Hunter.
Yep, can Rogue get over the hump? I mean, with a start like that, having Pharaoh Cat on 1 does help. Zalae, though, with a very nice hand. Spirit Jailer on 1 as well. I guess Mana Feeder is not truly a 2-drop that you always consider playing, but Zalae has options for his early game. That's what's important here. Ooh, yeah. Generous Mummy.
Soul Demon Hunter can kill you incredibly quickly if you give them a Generous Mummy.
Yes. I generally am not a big fan of Generous Mummy. I think that it's a little too generous. You know, I'm definitely all for sharing and compassion and giving, but it's a little too much. Gotta sometimes look out for number 1.
So this is actually a pretty complicated turn. Fr0zen wants to be able to set up for being able to play Evil Miscreant next turn, but there's not a great way to do that. I guess this is the only real. I guess this is the only real way by playing Pharaoh Cat, because now he can shadow. He will always have a shadow step target and can play Evil Miscreant next turn. And because of that, I don't think there's a way for Zalae to deal with both unless he coins out a Shard Shatter Mystic, which he would never do. You'll have a guaranteed target next turn, and you can even push the 1 for Pharaoh Cat, so I don't think it's worth playing Shadow Step now. Surprisingly tough turn. Those are kind of cool.
Yeah, the Mana Feeder Panthera coin play does kind of put him in a situation where he needs to find turn 4 play that's solid, because right now he's got all turn 5s. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's better than 1 Colossus of the Moon clogging your hand and being completely unplayable? Having 2 of them.
2 Colossus of the Moon and
to...
a Generous Mummy.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Those are
the actual worst possible.
The actual worst possible ones, yeah. That is
Yes.
unbelievable. Can you prep out a Colossus of the Moon, perhaps?
If you could, it still would be borderline unplayable.
If this game goes late.
All right, Evocation.
On the wings of evil.
Finds Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake, Evocation have a very fun dynamic together. But I don't know if that's what you want to spend your Evocation on.
No. To make your Twilight Drake slightly bigger?
It's pretty significant, because what you end up doing is you would play Evocation, then Twilight Drake, then prep a spell out. But yes, it's generally ill-advised.
Well, I mean, Zalae's hand he's not doing much. He has no AoE, no Shard Shatter Mystic, a lot of expensive stuff.
Right.
But he can just keep healing up this damage and going face. It's just
right.
The biggest problem for Fr0zen. It's like playing a minion, chipping down, and then Zalae just heals it all back up. This hand is so expensive.
Wow,
he does
such a
have
heavy
magic
hand.
Or Twilight Drake, but he doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah, he's better off actually playing like Sunshard Lapidary and then smacking the Twilight Drake.
Yeah. And if you're gonna do that,
Or
with
just
Consume
going
Magic
face.
in hand, why not just do it face? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Push 7 to face. He's got so much damage in hand, and an Eldrazi Warblades.
Right. He's got
Like,
4
what's-
damage
What's the punish for this?
times 3. He's got 4 damage times 3, so yeah. Plus they have Eldrazi Warblade. 16 damage in terms of the value, in terms of the power within his hand. What's the punish? This is the punish, TJ. The evocation potential.
Ice Barrier.
Ice barrier. Huge. And I mean, he probably would have loved Deep Freeze as well, but that's not staying around. And now Zalae is in a little bit of a spot where it's not super comfortable. He totally could still stay onto this face plan, but things can still get real tight here with 9 power or 10 power with the dagger. So Zalae set up on a 3-turn lethal here.
Does not know what the secret is, so that also affects his decision making for this turn. Think about the Skull of Gul'dan and how to get that closer to being able to be cast outcast position seems
I grow
also
impatient.
something that should be on his mind.
And he gets the bad news. That is indeed a barrier of ice.
Time grows short.
And that's going to be a situation where Zalae has to kind of use things like Glaive out of depth, maybe even defensively, or just double down offensively. Oh, yeah. I love a double down, TJ.
So if he's counting damage, if he goes Eldrazi Warblades, Twin Slice, Hero Power next turn, he heals for 7, deals 7, and puts Fr0zen down to 11 health. Hey, yeah, I don't know about this one.
If only
11 damage is a lot to get through.
If only Colossus of the Moon were beasts. Then you could have Beastmaster summon them. Whoa. Those are sizable minions. Zalae does not have the Shard Shutter Mystic. Finds Hunter Ace. Okay, what it does allow him to do is actually to use his hero to trade and take some damage itself. So if you use Consume Magic on the Twilight Drake, for example, he can clean up a lot of this. Perhaps an argument against choosing the Fossil Warlord, by the way, as a targetable minion that could get killed off of the hit.
Demons? Demons.
Still seems like a pretty awkward situation here. Ace Queen is a lot of mana
Time grows short.
when you have a very expensive hand. I guess so, though.
Yeah, like
Consume
there's a
Magic,
situation
Ace
where
Hunter,
you
Eldrazi
have to start.
Warblades,
Yeah.
or Soulshear, Ace Hunter Queen, Hero Power, and deal with Jandis. All right, this makes sense too, because now he has a much better chance of being able to outcast his Skull. The problem is, because of how much damage is on board, he's almost certainly going to have to play Eldrazi Warblades next turn. And does he have enough mana to stabilize? Oh, Cold Neophyte is that feels like a huge.
Generous Mummy as well.
Oh, it's sick with Cold Neophyte because he wants to play spells, but now it's just a net even.
Yeah.
Now the spells are just their normal cost. But the minions are cheaper. Does that matter?
Minions are cheaper. And Zalae does not seem safe still. Eldraki Warblade plus Twin Slice and Twin Slice is 6 healing. But I think he really needed that draw to be Blade Dance in order to have a chance to stay in this game here. Is Fr0zen really going to get a Generous Mummy and 2 Colossi of the Moon and still win against Demon Hunter? That's really impressive. Having 3 cards that are borderline unplayable, I mean, actually unplayable for most of this game.
Time grows short.
So he'll go up to 9.
Yeah. Go
He
off
can
this.
Wait.
There's still just exact lethal on board. Oh,
Wait, why didn't he
so
second
close
slice
for
instead of
Zalae.
hero power? If he was alive at
Yeah.
1, if he just set
You're right, he was alive at 1.
Gosh.
If he ended up going for that second slice there, but wait.
I wonder.
What is happening?
it's lethal on board.
Am I missing something here?
On board.
No,
It's
Fr0zen,
lethal
you're too
on
good of a
board.
player to miss this. Don't do this to me. Not on a
lethal on
Friday
board.
night.
It's lethal on
No!
board. It's lethal on board.
Look, Zalae doesn't even know how to react.
There's lethal with a dagger up.
Ugh. 5 from the Mummy, 1 from the Evil Miscreant, 2 from the Chinvala. Okay, he sees
All right.
it. And the world's longest extended
Whoa.
PM has been successfully achieved. Well done.
Scared me for a second.
Oh, jeez.
Scared me for a hot second there.
All right. Okay.
You got there.
I don't know. I never doubted him for a second, TJ. I don't know what you were talking about.
He didn't even react at the end like, oh, whoo, you know, a lot of players, and they're like, oh, I missed, almost missed an obvious lethal. They kind of react at the end, but that leads me to believe that it was just BM the whole time. So, still, kind of a weird end to that game. Zalae disrespecting the board for so long. Granted, he didn't draw AoE, but then just missing an ability to survive. And look at the potential for stabilization. Had he been at 10 there, can Fr0zen afford to go off ace and set up, knowing that there's a bunch of soul fragments in the deck, knowing that there's minions on board? He had double Colossus in the Moon. His next draw was Blackjack Stunner, so his only play that turn would have been a 1/2. Maybe Zalae stabilizes. So, just a bit of oversight. Maybe he counted 1 more. Maybe he thought he was alive at 1 and didn't need the second slice. But those are things you gotta think through in their fullest.
Yep, that's right. So after 1 day of play here in Week 7, Fr0zen is topping the charts, 4-2, tied with ETC. Zalae takes a loss, but he's still right there in the middle. And if he gets a win,